So, hi everyone. I guess it's my turn to welcome you all to QCrypt. Before we get started, I'd just like to say a few words about the way you can ask questions. There are two ways in which you can ask questions. The first one is to use the question and answer functionality of Zoom. So you can just type your question in there. The second way is to raise your hand. So there's a button somewhere where you can raise your hand, and as session chair, I'll handle the questions like this. So, without further ado, let's kick off the conference with our first invited talk. So, the speaker will be Anthony Leverrier. Anthony is a researcher at INRIA in Paris, and he's going to talk about security proofs for continuous variable quantum key distribution. So, Anthony, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So can you see the slides? Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, so thank you, Fred. So first, I would like to thank the organizers for putting up this great event, despite the pandemic and the tough conditions this year. I would also like to thank the steering committee for giving me the opportunity to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is continuous variable quantum key distribution, and more precisely, security proofs for QKD with continuous variables. Okay, just a sec. Okay, so first, just some quick disclaimer. So there won't be any joke about COVID in my talk. Sorry, I won't talk about experimental stuff. It will mostly be focused on theory. There exists a huge number of CV, continuous variable quantum key distribution protocols out there. I won't talk about many of them. In fact, I will only talk about like a couple of them, those which are both simple to describe and simple to implement. I think it's important to have these two conditions because kind of the goal of this talk is to give a flavor of continuous variable QKD to people who don't know about that. As also think that as a field in quantum key distribution, if we really want that this get deployed at large scale in the future, we really want to focus on protocols which can be implemented easily. And yeah, the talk might contain some controversial statements. Like, sure, BB84 is a fine protocol, but I think it's high time that we move to CV protocols. But I won't be too provocative. I will try to stay reasonable. Okay, so this is the outline of my talk. So first, I will try to present the difference between discrete variable QKD and continuous variable QKD. So mostly it will be a comparison between BB84 and CV QKD. Then we'll turn to security proofs, and I will try to kind of quickly present what is the state of the art right now of security proofs for CVQKD. As you will see, it's much less advanced than security proofs for BB84, but still, we've made a lot of progress in the last few years, and I want to talk a bit about that. And in the final part of my talk, I will talk about kind of the next steps. What are the open questions that remain? There are a few of those. Mostly like final size setting. We still have a lot of trouble analyzing finite size security for CVQKD and general attacks. Okay, we kind of understand well some restricted kind of attacks, but if we really want to go to general so-called coherent attacks, there's still a lot of work to be done. Okay, so this is kind of the outline of the talk. So okay, let me start with kind of a comparison between discrete and continuous variable QKD. So in my mind, QKD, there are like two simple QKD protocols that exist. The first one is the one that everybody knows about, BB84. And maybe I like to claim in somewhat controversial way that this protocol is so natural that it would have been discovered eventually, even without Charlie Bennett and Gilles Brassard probably much later. Okay, but at some point, this would have been discovered. It's so nice, so beautiful. I mean, and the idea of the protocol is simply this, no? So you prepare these kind of integrated states, 0, 0 plus 1, 1. You give one part to Alice, one part to Bob. And then you ask both Alice and Bob to measure with this POVM, so this measurement with 4 POVM elements, which are 0, 1, plus or minus. So usually when we present BBAT4, we say either we measure in a 0, 1 basis or in a plus minus basis, but we can represent the protocol as this. So we can just say that we have both Alice and Bob, they apply this, this measurement described by this POVM. So it's very nice. It's as simple as it can get. So you cannot do anything simpler than that. So it's beautiful. And I would like to argue that CVQKD, at least one of the CVQKD protocols, is a direct generalization of BBAT4 in infinite dimension. And it's also very nice. So what's the generalization? So now you don't want to have like qubits anymore. You want the full Fock space. So so it's an infinite dimensional Hilbert space spanned by, so you have a basis, which is the Fock basis, which is 0, 1, 2, 3. So it's indexed by the integers. And basically, instead of distributing 0, 0 plus 1, 1, what you want to do is to distribute this state. So it's the natural generalization of the 0, 0 plus 1, 1 state in infinite dimension. So in infinite dimension, you will have like infinitely many terms. So if you want to have something that that is normalized, you need to add this geometric coefficients. So you have 0, 0 plus lambda 1, 1 plus lambda square 2, 2 plus lambda to the k, k, k up to infinity. And this state, you can also write it in this way, in a very nice way. So it's just, you start with a vacuum state, so 0, 0, and you apply this nice operator, which is exponential of lambda times A dagger, B dagger, and A dagger is a so-called creation operator, so it creates a photon. So it maps 0 to 1, 2 to 3 with some normalization. And so A dagger and B dagger, they are creation operators for Alice and Bob spaces. So this state that might look a little bit complicated is very simple. It's just some kind of exponential operator applied to the vacuum. And also you distribute these states, and what you do, Alice and Bob, they both measure their subsystem with a kind of the simplest measurement that you can do in this Fock space, which has this POVM decomposition. So just the identity, the resolution of the identity is just the integral over the complex plane of this so-called coherent state. So this alpha, this is the projector on the coherent state alpha, which has kind of a somewhat complicated expression if you write it in a Fock space. But if you write it in terms of this creation operator, it has a very simple form. It's just the exponential of alpha A dagger applied to the vacuum. So this detection is called coherent detection. It's called heterodyne measurement, or sometimes double heterodyne measurement. So what it will output is a complex number, alpha. Okay, so the protocol is very simple. So you just distribute the copies of these states, which are just the natural generalization of the BBAT4 hyper pairs. And you measure with the simplest measurement that you can do in Fock space, which is this one. And that's it. That's the vanilla CVQKD protocol. There's an alternative. So there's a different CVQKD protocol, which is much studied, where instead of using this heterodyne measurement, you do homodyne detection. So basically you measure either the real part of this alpha or the imaginary part of this alpha. And if you look at this, the setup of corresponding to that protocol, it's exactly the setup of the Einstein, Podolsky, Rosen paper from 1935. So when they wanted to kind of argue that quantum mechanics was not complete, they were really looking at exactly that experiment. They were looking at sharing these kind of states and measure ice and bump measuring their part of the state with the line detection. So in a sense, somehow CVQKD is very old as well. Of course, this was not formalized this way in 35. It was formalized much later, like in the early 2000s by Ralph, Reed, Cerf, Croissance, Granchier, Wilbrook. So about 20 years ago. Okay, so that's what I want to say. So I want really to say that to me, there are two very nice and natural QKD protocols, which are BB84 and this CVQKD protocol. BB84 has been studied a lot, and this CVQKD protocol has not been studied as much. And I really want to encourage people to look at it more closely. Okay, so that was for the theory. So what about the practice? Okay, so theory versus practice. So here I would like to make another kind of provocative statement. I would like to say that BB84 is very nice in theory, but not so much in practice. Why is that? Because really what you want is you want to prepare single photons, and usually we don't know how to do that very well. So what people really do, they kind of prepare this two-mode squeeze state in general. So exactly the same state that we had in the CVQKD protocol, and you measure one of the two subsystems. And if you get a click, then you know that there was a photon present in the first pulse. Another version of BB84, which is more experimentally friendly, is to don't try to use single photons, but directly use coherent states, which is exactly what we use in CVQKD. So both these approaches, they use the same states as in CVQKD. And when you do that, this forces you to kind of redo the security analysis, because you can have like multi-photon pulses, which can be exploited by the adversary. Okay, so this is the first change between the theory and the practice of BB84. You cannot really prepare these single photons easily. A second change is that photon counters, they are also hard to implement. So what people do instead is that they replace them by threshold detectors. Okay, and when you do that, somehow you leave the qubits subspace that you would like to look at for BB84, but you enter into an infinite dimensional Fock space, which is exactly the same as CVQKD. So my point is that BB84 looks very nice on paper, as a computer science protocol, but when you try to do it in practice, then you kind of have states and measurements, or just states that look similar to the ones that we have in CVQKD. In contrast, for CVQKD, the implementations or the practice is pretty much as advertised. Okay, so we have the same states that than the one that are mentioned in the protocol. We use the same measurement as specified. So if I want to be completely honest, there's a small difference. I mean, when we specify the protocol, we assume that you can really measure perfectly, perform this detection perfectly. It's not quite true. In practice, you will not get an arbitrary alpha, arbitrary complex number. You will get some finite precision. But still, so we use the same states, same measurement as prescribed. In the prepare and measure version, AIS prepares coherent states with a Gaussian modulation, meaning that alpha is chosen from this Gaussian distribution. Or sometimes, as I will explain later, we can just take alpha from a finite set. So this is very easy to do, and this coherent state is very easy to prepare. So the implementations that we have today of CVQKD, they closely match what the description of given by the original protocols. And this is not true for BB84. So my personal bit provocative view is that BB84 was nice to launch the field of quantum crypto like 35 years ago. But I think that the future belongs to CV. But we can discuss this. Okay, so are there any drawbacks to CVQKD? So one possible drawback is the same one as you give like in job interviews when people ask you what is something bad about you, and you say, I'm too hardworking somehow. So here it's the same. So kind of the first drawback of CVQKD is that this theory is more challenging. Okay, so looks bad, but also makes it interesting for theorists. So why is it more challenging? One reason is that the dimension of the space, of the Hilbert space, is infinite. So it's not a qubit space. But the same is true for implementations of DV-QKD. Probably the most serious difference between CV and DV is, of course, the measurements. They are continuous valued, so they output continuous values. So that's fine. But really, the difficulty that appears is that the measurement operators, they are unbounded. Okay, so when you get this alpha, this complex number, there's no upper bound on the value of alpha. Okay, so this is very different from qubit protocols where you have 0 or 1s, and that's it. And so the quality of the correlations between Alice and Bob states, they're not measured like by numbers between 0 and 1, like the quantum bit error rate or the CHSH score, as for discrete variable QKD, but they are measured by something called the covariance matrix of the state, which is unbounded in general. So we don't have, there's no way to kind of give an upper bound on the values of the covariance matrix. And so this leads to some conceptual difficulties. So the proofs that we have for discrete variable QKD, they don't go through in this framework. But I would like to say that I think that the problems, they are very clean. The problems that we get, they are very nice. We have some state and we want to estimate the covariance matrix. That's a neat problem. Probably a more serious drawback of CVQKD is concerns experimental performance. Okay, so it's kind of clear that CVQKD seems to be less robust to loss than discrete variable QKD. So kind of one kind of intuition for why this is the case is that when you have losses in BB84 or like in DV protocols, what it means is that the photon won't make it to Bob. And so basically the Bob's detector won't click. And so you just discard that event. So that's, you have this nice filter that the losses, they're kind of filtered out by no-click events. In CVQKD, it's not the case. So all the pulses, they arrive. There's always something that Bob measures. Simply, it will be noisier. So most of the time, there won't be much signal, but there will be only noise. And the consequence of this is that it makes it harder to estimate the channel parameters precisely and to estimate what is the state that Alice and Bob share. And the consequence is that because this parameter estimation will be much harder, in general, if you want to go to very long distances, you will have to measure the channel parameters very precisely, and this will require very large blocks. Okay, so you really need very large block size to get to long distance. So you need like setups which are very stable over time, and you need a lot of like classical post-processing. So this is really, in my mind, the big disadvantage of CV compared to discrete variables is really that it's less robust to loss. But if you want to work at like 50 kilometers, 100 kilometers, I think it's fine. Okay. Okay, so let me just give you quickly what does the vanilla CVQKD look like? Okay, protocol look like. So the prepare and measure version of the CVQKD protocol that I have in mind goes like this. So Alice prepares some coherent states, alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha n, and she sends those to Bob. So alpha k can either be a Gaussian variable, a random variable, or an element of a finite set. So say like a set with 4 elements, plus alpha, minus alpha, plus I alpha, minus I alpha. So this is very simple. Bob measures what he gets with heterodyne detection. So it gets complex numbers, beta 1 up to beta n. And typically, if you have like an optical fiber between Alice and Bob, and you have no attack, what you will get is that usually beta will be related to alpha in the following way. So beta will be equal to t times alpha plus gamma. So t here is just a fixed attenuation coefficient that depends on the length of your channel. So for, say, 100 kilometers in optical fiber, it will be 0.1. And gamma will be some Gaussian noise. And the Gaussian noise, so it will be centered Gaussian noise, so zero mean. And the variance of that noise is 1. So this is like it's called the shot noise unit. So this is due to the uncertainty principle, plus some excess noise, so this t square xi. So xi is called the excess noise. And this is really what plays the role of the Q-bar, if you want, in CVQKD. So the way we kind of, we evaluate the quality of the correlations between Alice and Bob is through this parameter, xi. In typical implementation, it's like 10 to the minus 3, 10 to the minus 2. And because of this t square, so you can see that this t square xi will be like 10 to the minus 5 at 100 kilometers. But the noise will have, so variance 1.00001. And what you really want to do to kind of estimate this information is to estimate this small difference between the shot noise and this total noise. Okay, so this is the quantum part, and then you have classical post-processing, which is essentially identical to discrete variable protocols. So you have a key mapping. So here we use Bob's data to extract a raw key. It's called reverse reconciliation in some papers. But really it's the same for BB84, because in BB84 we could say that you use I's data to get the key, but it's not quite true, because you discard the no-click events. So really what you do is you just keep Alice's data when Bob receives something. Okay, so you have this beta 1 up to beta n, and you need to find a way to discretize these complex numbers. So you do that, and you get a raw key. And then what you really want to do for the parameter estimation is to estimate the covariance matrix of this alpha beta. So informally, what you want to do is to estimate the attenuation of the channel and this excess noise. And this is really the most challenging part of the protocol. And then you do privacy amplification as usual. Okay, so it's kind of simple protocol. You prepare this coherent states, you measure with this heterodyne detection, you get complex numbers, and then you try to extract the key from that. Okay, so what should we use, CV or DV? Here also I will be a bit kind of provocative, but yeah, so photons, they live in an infinite dimensional Fock space. So why should we encode information in some restricted qubit space? That's kind of a weird thing to do. The simplest states to prepare are the coherent states, which are Gaussian states. So those are the ones that are used everywhere in the telecom industries. Those are the ones that you have when you have a laser pointer. So of course you want to use those. So you can use those with BB84, but you need to tweak the protocol to do that. For CV, it's exactly the state that you would use in the first place. What about detection? I think coherent detection is really kind of the way to go. This is something that the whole telecom industry they are looking for. They have been working a lot to kind of do this because, of course, if you can do that, it's very interesting also for classical communications. You can increase the speed of all classical telecommunications. So there are huge incentives for the telecom industry to work on improving coherent detection. It's not the case for single photon detectors. And I think it's more natural efficient to encode information in phase space. So really what you want to use is continuous variables. So something that people might say, okay, but what about all these great things that we invented recently in discrete variable QKD? So what about device independent, measurement device independent, twin field QKD? So we know that those don't really work with CV. So there are like papers that do a bit of measurement device independent with CV, but they don't work as well as with discrete variables. Okay, fine. So we cannot really do that with CV, but why do we need those in the first place? I mean, here, yeah, I would say that kind of the reason we invented these things is really because we didn't know how to implement vanilla BB84 in the first place. We don't have like single photons, we don't have single photon counters, so we have something else. And because we don't really implement what we are supposed to be implemented, this opens the door to side channel attacks. And the way to kind of prevent these attacks is by developing these kind of strategies. So okay. What I would like to say very provocatively is that qubits, they are good for computing, I think, but they are much less good for communicating, at least classical information, which is really what you do with QKD. You really want to exchange classical bits or classical information. Okay. Okay, so this was like for the comparison between BB84 and CVQKD. Now let me give you like a quick state-of-the-art of security pros for continuous variable QKD. So QKD is really like a tomography problem. What you really want to do is you have Alice and Bob, they share some state, and what you want to be able to do is to kind of characterize the correlations between Alice and Bob and show that if the correlations are good enough, then you can get like a useful upper bound on Eve's information about some row key. Okay, so this is really what you want to do. If you want to do composable security against general attacks, the thing that you want to compute for your state is this kind of smooth mean entropy of x1 up to xn condition on Eve's side information, and this is computed for the whole bipartite state corresponding to the n uses of the channel. So this quantity is very hard to compute in general, but for a lot of nice protocols, you can show that you can, instead of computing this, you can show that it's very close to n times something which is much simpler to compute, which is this conditional von Neumann entropy computed for a single use of the channel. And here we can already see like a difficulty for CVQKD. So if you want to compute this quantity for BB84 or like for discrete variable protocols, this state rho AXE or rho B ABE will be like a 4-qubit pure state for BB84. So you have like 16 parameters. So you can compute everything like rather easily. You can optimize things. But if you're dealing with CVQKD, then your state it's not a 2-qubit or 4-qubit state anymore. It's like a 4-mode state. So it lives in this huge Hilbert space, which is spanned by this ket IJKL, where IJKL, they are both integers. So it's an infinite dimensional space. And even if you truncate the Fock space, you say, okay, I forget. I don't care about states with more than 10 photons per mode. Even doing that, you get something which is like 10 to the 4 parameters, which is huge. And I think kind of the one or the only useful tool that we have to kind of say something about von Neumann entropies in the CV regime is the fact that the von Neumann entropy is maximized by Gaussian state. So if you have a state rho, its von Neumann entropy will be upper bounded by the von Neumann entropy computed for rho g, where rho g is the state, the Gaussian state, with the same covariance matrix as rho. Okay, and the covariance matrix for like a 4-mode state, it will be like a 8 by 8 matrix. It will have like a few tens of parameters. So there's a QKD version of this claim, which is that the Olivo information between some rho key and Eve is upper bounded by the Olivo information between Rocky and Eve computed for the Gaussian state with the same covariance matrix as our state. So this was noticed like 15 years ago, and this led a few these papers. People managed to use this to prove the asymptotic security of CVQKD against collective attacks. Okay. For protocols with a Gaussian modulation. So for protocols where alpha, the states which are sent by Alice, this alpha is chosen from a Gaussian distribution. Okay, so this was basically what we had like for a long time. And in the last few years, there was some progress. So I want really to talk about two kinds of protocols, the protocols with a Gaussian modulation and the protocol with a discrete modulation. So for the protocols with a Gaussian modulation, I think the problem is essentially solved, not completely, but almost. And the protocol with discrete modulation, so when alpha is chosen from a discrete set, is still very open. And it's somewhat a pressing issue because people really want to implement this thing, and we are missing like even the most basic security proofs. Okay, so first, the protocols with the Gaussian modulation. So alpha is chosen from this Gaussian distribution. So there we have kind of two techniques that allow us to prove security against general attacks. So there was the first technique, which uses the entropic uncertainty relation. Here, the idea is that you don't quite do this heterodyne measurement that I was mentioning, but you really measure either quadratures, so X or P. So you measure either the real part of this beta or the imaginary part. You choose one of those. So you discretize your results, and then you can prove an entropic uncertainty relation like this. So you can show that the smooth mean entropy of X given E, which is exactly what you want to bound, plus the max entropy, the smooth max entropy of the other quadrature measurement given B, now given Bob, is lower bounded by something, which is explicit. So you have an explicit formula here. And this max entropy, you can evaluate it in the protocol. So this way you can get a lower bound on this mean entropy. So this is very nice, but there are kind of two drawbacks. So the protocol here, it requires so-called squeeze states. So it cannot work with coherent states, the ones I was mentioning before that are really easy to prepare in practice. And the bound that we get here is not believed to be tight. But still, we get like a full security proof in that setting. A different approach to prove security, so it's using kind of Definity type arguments, and in particular, kind of a Gaussian version of the Definity theorem. So here, the crucial fact is that the protocol that I was describing before is symmetric with respect to the unitary group, UN. And this group is much bigger than the permutation group SN that we have for BB84. So because of that, because the protocol is symmetric with respect to a much bigger group, symmetric group, we can constrain the states that we need to look at a lot more. So we don't just need to look at IID states, as in the usual Definity theorem, but here we can even restrict the analysis to Gaussian IID states. And then when you do that, then you can prove the security of the protocol using equipartition property and some kind of standard tricks. The only missing element here in this line of work is that this assumes that the measurements they are infinitely precise, which is not the case in practice. In practice, the detectors they will have like just a finite precision, a few bits of precision. So this kind of this precision issue is not included in the security proof. So the security proof is not quite complete at the moment. Okay, so this is for like Gaussian modulation, but really what we want to do in practice is not that. What people want to do is to use a discrete modulation. So this is your complex plane, your phase space. What you really want to do is not to send states with a Gaussian distribution, but rather states from a small constellation of points, say 4 points like these ones. So there have been a lot of people working on this, and there are different motivations for this. First, it's much easier to implement. So this is really what the telecom industry, they are trying to do, they're doing. It's also better for error correction. It's easier to do error correction with this kind of modulation schemes and with Gaussian modulation. And there's a huge interest from the industry to do that. And in Europe, we have this quantum flagship project where we study exactly this kind of protocols. So it's nice. So this is really what we want to do, but the theory is even more complicated now. The entropic uncertainty relation, they don't help at all, because here we have coherent states, and these relations only apply with squeeze state at the moment. Of course, when you do this kind of discrete modulation, you lose the nice symmetries of the Gaussian distribution. So the symmetry with respect to the unitary group is now broken, so you cannot use the Gaussian definity anymore. So it's also unclear how to perform parameter estimation in that setting. And even if you look at now the entanglement-based protocol corresponding to this one, it's not as nice as before. It's not. You don't start with the Gaussian bipartite state as before. You don't do like Gaussian measurement for Alice. So you kind of break all the symmetry that you had. And even bounding the von Neumann entropy is not so easy to do. So there was a recent paper that kind of dealt with the case where you have only 2 states in your constellation. It's a paper by Matsuura et al. And the way they do it is by kind of mapping the protocol to a qubit protocol. Say that you have 2 states, and they are basically combinations of zeros and ones in some qubit space. That's nice, but we kind of know that using only 2 states in the constellation is not enough to get good performance. It's kind of unclear at the moment how to extend this result to like 4 states in the constellation or more. But so last year there were like 2 kind of advances, 2 papers in PRX that kind of made progress on this question. So one by Shubik Gorai, Philippe Grangier, Lenny Guarenti, and myself, and one by Jilin, I forgot the first name of Upadhyaya, and Norbert Lucaos. And both papers, they kind of do the same thing. So they look at, so the setting that we look at is asymptotic security for collective attacks. So you assume that the channel parameters, they are known. You don't care about final size effects. So you assume that you know, say, your covariance matrix, and you just want to bound either the Olevo information or the conditional von Neumann entropy. And the way you do that is you reduce the problem to a convex optimization problem of that form. Basically, we minimize some function of the state subject to some constraints. So rho has to be like a state, positive semi-definite with race 1. And then you have a lot of constraints, which are the constraints that you get by observing the data in the prepare and measure protocol. And the difference between these two papers, so in our paper, we were looking for a functional here, f, which is very kind of nice, which is linear in rho, which is basically an element of the covariance matrix between Alice and Bob. This is what we wanted to bound. And then we use this Gaussian optimality I was mentioning before. And when you do that, you have a simple SDP optimization, which can in principle be extended to larger modulation, more than 4 states. The problem is that the bound that we get, they are not tight. And in the paper by Lin, Upadhyaya, and Lucaos, they directly bound the right quantity. So they directly bound the conditional von Neumann entropy, h of x given E. So what is nice is that it gives them a much tighter key rate. But kind of the bad thing is that the objective function now is nonlinear in rho. So the optimization is more involved than with our techniques. But if you compare the results of these 2 papers, so this is a plot from Lin et al. So the kind of the blue line is a secret key rate that you would get as a function of distance if you had a Gaussian modulation. And this green line is what the second paper gets for this 4-state modulation. So it's not quite as good as the Gaussian modulation, but it's quite nice. I mean, it goes to like more than 180 kilometers. And this red line is what we get. So clearly, our approach is less tight than this one for 4 states. So this was last year. So this is these are both nice results. So, but there are a few limitations to these works. First, these are only numerical results, so that's quite disappointing. But that's the way it is. Maybe a more like problematic issue is that the true SDP, these optimization problems, they cannot be directly solved because they have like infinite dimension. So what you need to do in both these problems is to truncate the Fock space to like say 10 or 15 photons per mode. So this seems okay. I mean, numerically, it seems like that you have something which is converging nicely. So it seems okay. It seems fine to do that, but there's no proof. But there's a poster about this, making some improvements about this at QCrypt, so poster 92. Another limitation of these two works is that they only deal with ideal detection and not with like realistic detections where you have like imperfect detection with noise and a bit of loss. So I think it's rather easy to patch this approach to take imperfections into account, but they still won't be tight. You still won't be like get a tight band. I think it's harder for adapting this kind of approach to the second approach to imperfections in the detection. But there's also a poster by Lin et al. Presented at this edition of QCrypt. In both these works, parameter estimation is completely ignored, so we don't know how to deal with that at the moment. It's not clear what will happen with larger constellations. So what I guess is that our approach will extend more nicely to larger constellations. It will be because the SDP is easier to solve. And I think it will get tighter and tighter as you increase the size of the constellation. But this remains to be done. Okay. So yeah. So this is pretty much the.
Anthony, you have about just a few minutes left. It's already.
Okay. Fine. Yeah. Thanks. So yeah. So thanks, Fred. So this is what I wanted to say about the state of the art of security proofs for CVQKD. And in the last few minutes, I just want to mention a few open questions. What are the next steps? So first kind of thing that we want to do is to get security against general attacks. We want to have like a finite size analysis. So kind of a nice technique that has emerged in the last few years that is turned out to be very useful for discrete variable QKD, also for device independent QKD, is the entropy accumulation theorem. It was developed by Frédéric Dupuis, Omar Fauzi, and Renato Renner. And basically, this technique, it allows you to kind of lower bound the smooth mean entropy that you want by n times some quantity that is computed for a single use of the channel. So for discrete variable QKD or for device independent QKD, this is what you want, because then a single use of the channel is kind of easy to characterize and to analyze. For continuous variable QKD, it's more tricky than that, because even that we don't really know how to do. So there are several difficulties to adapt this entropy accumulation theorem to continuous variables. Kind of the one difficulty is that it requires some test. You kind of require that you want to check that the correlations are good enough. So for discrete variables, it's kind of easy to come up with the right test. You want to check that Alice and Bob, they get the same bit when they measure on the same basis, or you want to check that they violate CHSH inequality as they should. For continuous variables, it's more tricky because somehow this test should be related to the covariance matrix of the state, but it's not clear how to do that. And also the test should depend on some unbounded continuous outcome. And again, this makes things much more complicated. So at the moment, we don't really know how to kind of adapt this test for it to continuous variables. So it's a big open question how to do that. I think the real difficulty here, so we'll just mention it quickly. So it's really these unbounded variables that we get. So you can just think about this classical set problem, which looks very simple, but it turns out to be not so simple. So you're given n instances of some IID random variable. You're promised that the random variable has 0 mean, and you just want to estimate the variance of this thing. And this is basically what we want to do in CiviQKD, and it's not so easy to do, because if you do random sampling, as we do in discrete variable QKD, this won't work. You can always kind of cook up expressions, distributions like this, where you get zeros most of the time, and just sometimes you get a very large amplitude, very large xi. And if you don't sample essentially all your string, you won't see that. You won't see these events that are very important to estimate the variance. So there's a solution that has been used in the past for CiviQKD is to apply a random rotation to your vector. So if you get a vector x1 to xn, what you can do is you apply your random orthogonal rotation or orthogonal transformation to your vector. You get a new vector, and then you just measure the few first coordinates. And then because this state, this vector will have like this rotation symmetry, you can use concentration of measure, and it will give you tight bounds on the variance. So this was used to deal with protocols with Gaussian modulation, but this cannot be used for protocol with a discrete modulation. So at the moment, we don't know how to perform parameter estimation for protocol with a discrete modulation. And one important open question that also remains more concretely is, what is the optimal constellation? How many states should we use? So it's kind of clear that we won't use in practice a Gaussian modulation because it's not physical, so we need a finite constellation. We know that if you do 2 or 3 states, it's not enough to get a good performance. So 4 states, they're okay. And we have like some kind of asymptotic results. These were the 2 papers I was mentioning before. But if we increase the number of states, we should expect the key rate to kind of reach the one of the Gaussian modulation. So we can expect a 10-fold increase in the key rate if we use more than 4 states. Moreover, if you use more than 4 states, it will be much better for parameter estimation and for finite size effects. And this is very easy to do for the telecom industry. They kind of use this kind of modulation schemes in practice. So one thing to be done is really to try to extend the previous results to see what is the impact of an increased constellation size on the key rate. Okay, so now I'm reaching my conclusion. So I just want to say a few words to conclude and give some open questions. So in my view, I think that continuous variable QKD is really well suited to large-scale deployment of QKD. It's really compatible with telecom industry standards. It's really what like the big telecom operators, they want to do. They want to use coherent states. They want to use coherent detection. They really don't want, I think, to use single photons and to use photon counters to measure the states. But the security is quite involved. There are lots of new things that appeared, so infinite dimension, unbounded variables, discretization, truncation. But I would kind of argue that it's probably not more involved than for modern discrete variable QKD protocols, like twin field or measurement device independent protocols or protocols with decoy states. All these protocols, they have so many features that getting a full security proof is probably not so easy. In contrast, the CiviQKD, you don't have all these kind of strange additions or features. You have the basic protocol, and that's it. So, but the basic protocol and the rules of the protocols, they change a little bit. You have these unbounded variables that you have to deal with. So I think that the problems, it's not easy, but you have kind of clean problems, clean mathematical problems that you can play with. And I just want to conclude with kind of some changes for the theorists. So is it possible to apply entropy accumulation to CVQKD? Or should we perform a parameter estimation if you don't have this kind of rotation symmetry? So if you have a discrete modulation, and kind of this important open question that should be resolved soon is what is the best constellation that you should use? So do you want 4 states or do you want to use a large constellation? Okay, and with that, I would like to thank you.
Okay, thank you, Anthony, for this very nice talk. I guess I'll applaud on behalf of the whole audience. Unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot of time for questions. We're already over the slot. Maybe I'll just we had a few comments from Qiang Zhang, so maybe I can open his mic just a second. Maybe it's easier if you can actually talk directly. Qiang, you should be allowed to talk now.
Oh, okay. So first, I would like to thank the speaker. I think it's a very good theory. But I only want to comment about the comparison between DV and CV about the implementation. Actually, it's not true because I have basically two main comments. The first one is for the current DV QKD. I mean, even for the product or for the the experimental setup, we do not need any single photon source or photon number resolving detector. That's really actually not necessary. There is a very good solution and a commercialized solution for that. So it shouldn't be the disadvantage for the DWA. And the second one is for the DI, MDI, or TFQKD. It's basically for implementation security. It's not only applied for the DWA QKD, but also for CV QKD, and also for the classical crypto system. You need to think about that. It's implementation security. It's not because the DWA QKD is not good enough, so we needed such kind of protocol. That's my two comment. And my feeling is like DWA QKD and CVQKD both had an advantage, disadvantage. For me, I think DWA QKD may have problem is its price. Probably it's a little bit higher than CVQKD, but it's good for long distance communication, and CV probably cheaper. And here, I understand you didn't talk about that because you probably doesn't know very well about that, because I understand because you're serious, but it's really unfair because of your comparison is kind of, it's not related to current technology, as you see. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I was trying to be a bit provocative, so I agree that I should have like a more measured.
Anyway, yes, thank you.
I agree.
Yeah. So I don't know if there are any other questions here. Otherwise, maybe I have a question. So early in the talk, you said something about CVQKD being much less robust to noise than discrete variable QKD. Can you elaborate a bit on that? It seems like it does seem a bit artificial in the sense that maybe I guess it's because it's noisier somehow, and that's expensive during error correction. Is that it, or am I completely?
So yeah, so what I said is that the protocols are less robust to losses.
To loss. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's kind of if you look at
but I guess if you have loss, I guess in CV it translates into very low valued signals somehow.
Exactly. Yes.
Right.
But
so
the key-rate doesn't. Yeah. Exactly. But so what you will typically if you have like asymptotic regime, so if you don't care about Feigen's effects and you assume that you know this excess noise, this kind of channel parameters very well, infinitely precisely, you get this kind of nice curves. So you can go to 200 kilometers without any problem. But as soon as you look at Feigen's effects, you need to kind of estimate this excess noise value very precisely, and then you will usually see like a huge drop of the key rate, like at 100 kilometers or so, if you have like block size which is 10 to the 10, 10 to the 11. So if you really want to go to much longer distances, you need huge block sizes because you need to estimate your noise very precisely.
Okay, and this is somehow fundamental, or is it? or should it be in your other box of more challenging theory? Somehow it seems like it's something that you could somehow deal with, right? Because you have the information compared to discrete variables.
Yeah,
like
I agree. So it's not, yeah, I would say it's fundamental, but I don't have a proof for that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, no, I mean, in practice, it will always be easier to go to long distances with discrete variables and with continuous variables. Maybe there are some tricks that can be invented for CV to extend the range. So, but the kind of the only trick that you have is to extend the block size, to use very long, very large blocks, say 10 to the 13, 10 to the 14, and then you can get to longer distances. But the problem is that you have so much, the kind of the noise that is introduced by the adversary is so small compared to the shot noise, to the noise due to the entropic uncertainty and to the uncertainty relation. You have to measure this kind of very small additional noise due to the adversary, and among and doing this requires a lot of samples. So you need to do parameter estimation with very large block size.
Right. Thanks. So we have a few more questions that appeared, but I think we're completely out of time here because the next session is going to start in 15 minutes already. We want to have a break. So I'm going to thank Anthony again for his very nice talk.